And there's a video that is so now we'll go into the part where we're talking about inaccuracies, right? So this is actually presented to the FLAC committee, the Family Life Advisory Committee, and it's a video that's really inaccurate. And it says that biological sex is on a spectrum. That's not true. We define that by whether you produce sperm or egg. There's only two choices. There are no sperm in existence. There is only sperm or egg. And that's how biological sex is defined. It says that hormone levels determine biological sex. They don't. That's not how we define it. Again, it's sperm or egg. That's how it's defined. And then it says intersex people may not fit into the standard definition male or female, and they imply like that's the most common case, is actually the context. But nearly all the time, it's known. There's very few, there's actually 40 different conditions for intersex. So a lot of people, when they think intersex, like, oh, you're like male and female at the same time. There's like one condition called ovotestis, where you have an ovary and a testy that could possibly even qualify for that. The other conditions you pretty much know. It's like a woman with an enlarged clitoris or a guy that's got a micropenis. There's like 40 different conditions. And so defining intersex people in that way is really misleading. And then they say gender identity is separate from biological sex. That can be true. Again, I'll use that term just as it's commonly used as you define it. But it actually rarely is. It's very rare that someone would, even if you go with the concept of gender identity, it's very rare. Most men and most women identify as their biological sex. That's actually, historically, it's been 1 in 10,000 people would ever even get gender dysphoria, almost all young males. So it's like you would never have met, historically, prior to the last 10 years, you would have never met a gender dysphoric person. Like literally in Frederick County, there's about 45,000 students, so the historical average of 1 in 10,000 in health, there would be 4 to 5 kids in the entire system that would have ever died of gender dysphoria. They would almost all be young males, and they would have desisted. They would have, when they went through puberty, they would have re-identified with their natal sex at a rate of anywhere, depending on which study you look at, between 61% and 98%. So it would be very rare that someone would be in that situation. And then there's a clever verbal shift in here where they actually say, well, someone who identifies as male, who is attracted to people whose gender is male, that means they're gay, right? So they're defining gender, they're using gender identity to define sexuality, but that's not actually how sexologists do it. So if you're a biological male and you have a relationship with another biological male, it doesn't matter what that male identifies with as a gender identity. From a sexology perspective, they are actually in a homosexual relationship. It's like 2 biological males. That's just how it's defined. You may not, as a people in that relationship, you may not regard yourselves that way, but from a sexologist's definition, that's actually how it's defined. And then, let's see here. So the phrase two-spirit was claimed to be used by indigenous people. Actually, the research I found is 1990 in a lesbian gay conference in, I believe it's in Toronto, it's in Canada, I think it's in Toronto. It appears to be the actual first reference to that. So it's not clear that two-spirit people actually use the phrase two-spirit to reference that. And then it also claims, even on the grammar, it claims that they was historically used as a definite singular pronoun to refer to a known person. It's really not true. If you were hiring a lifeguard and you didn't know if they were male or female, you say, oh, I hope they do a good job. Well, that's an unknown person, but if you were referring to, let's say, a female lifeguard that you hired, you would say, I hope she does a good job, right? You wouldn't say they. That's not historically how that was used. In recent times, that's been redefined, but that's not historically how it was, and that's what. All right, any questions about that? You always have good questions?
I'm at a loss.
Okay.
So, okay, going back to, biological sex is either you produce
Sperm or egg.
Sperm or egg.
Or have the potential to. I'll add that caveat, because obviously when a child's born, they're not producing sperm as people, right?
Right. And so, I don't know. Like, I just can imagine there are humans that are born that have, that are missing organs, or where do they fit?
So of the 40 or so conditions that are called intersex conditions, the technical name is actually called disorder of sexual development, or some people prefer the gender differences of sexual development, but they're called DSDs. So in almost all those cases, you're able to determine whether male or female. In some cases you can't, but it's extremely rare. So the important thing, my issue with this is, if they're presenting it like biological sex exists on a spectrum and you can kind of like choose which gender identity fits you, but they're ignoring the fact this is a very rare thing. It should be presented. Yeah, this does happen, but like it's really rare. Like historically, it's 1 in 10,000 we even get what's called gender dysphoria. So I just don't like the lack of context of statistics here because it implies like it's common. And it's
So
not.
human beings are like a blank canvas. And the only difference is some are pink and some are blue.
Is that what you're saying? Or
That's what
you're
I'm saying, I'm
I'm
trying to understand the like that, your sex
Yeah, your
is
biological.
only a matter of that reproductive anatomy. That's the only difference? That's the only
The only
difference.
difference between men and women, and there are lots of other.
So there are
chemical-
other things besides whether you produce a sperm or an egg.
There are other differences, but it doesn't mean that's how you define it, right? So there are obviously other differences, so like XY chromosomes versus XX, right? Like, so that XY chromosomes and XX actually are not the definition of male and female. Chromosomes actually don't.
And there's a
define
lot
it.
more than those two even.
Well,
So,
yeah,
whoa.
I mean, they argue
Yes.
hormone levels, but that's not the definition.
So there's even other chromosome sets.
Yes,
That's,
there's multiple
you know,
chromosomes.
So it's like not even just those two.
Well, it's not, there's
Right.
like, yeah, there's some that have like 6 X's or something, I can send folks a video that have interest. But that's really, those are the exceptions that really prove the rule is true, which is
The
sperm and egg
exceptions.
defined.
Yeah, so I guess I want to make, my understanding is that for this conversation,
Right.
the only difference in any human expression is their sex organs. That's the only difference. Everything else is the same.
What I'm asserting is how you define who is male and who is female.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
which
based
matters.
on one thing, sperm
Right,
and egg.
yeah, and it matters. So, and it's just that, that's it, that's the
For
only
biological
difference.
sex, it is sperm and egg.
Right,
Yes.
so everything else is equal.
I don't want to mean everything else.
And
I'm just saying the
that the
definition.
human, like, the human creature,
Right?
we're all the same.
Well, I get it's
Except
like
for
this,
that.
like motorcycles versus cars, it's 2 wheels versus 4, right?
Oh,
That's how you define it,
Now
right?
it's so much more than that for motorcycles and cars. What you're saying is that there's a human porcelain creature. And 50%, they're all exactly the same, except 50% have this anatomy in their sexual organs. And this 51% has these sex organs. And that's the only difference.
I'm not saying it's the only difference, I'm saying it's how you define what gender, whether you're male.
Are you?
Well,
Like obviously women have, and men have secondary sex characteristics, right? There are differences in hormone levels, men have more testosterone, but the fact that you have higher testosterone doesn't define your sex. So there's a famous case of an Olympic female who actually has too much testosterone in her body, right? And she's not allowed to compete in the women's events because her testosterone is high. That testosterone does not define her as being a male. She is female. So testosterone levels don't, that's what I'm saying, hormones don't define, your hormone levels don't define whether you're male or female. It is defined by sexologists as what you produce from sperm and egg or have potential.
That's,
the
that's
definition.
very democratic, like, because, you know, then there is nothing else that defines roles for women and men. There's no other measurable differences or quantifiable characteristical differences between men and women, boys and girls. Other than
I
that,
don't
that's
see
the
it
only
being
difference.
democratic or not. It's like if you're talking about dogs, how do you know if it's a female dog or a male dog? Well, they produce
Oh,
sperm
no,
or egg.
I just
There's
mean
no
it's very-
sociological stuff going on there. They either have the anatomy or they don't. or
I'm
have
just saying it's
potential.
very
You're
liberating.
saying that this is the only difference is what they produce. There are men who can't produce sperm, and there are women who have no eggs.
Correct, yeah, but what, like I said, it's based on whether you produce sperm or egg or you have the reproductive anatomy that potentially produces sperm and egg. In other words, if you go through menopause and you're not making eggs anymore, you're still female, right? You have, and if you're an infant
Yeah, we're-
boy, you're not producing sperm when you're born, but you have potential to. That's how it's defined. It's
Well,
just-
and-
That's a basic sexologist definition, that's not my opinion, that's just, you can look
And
at
then
that research
you're
book,
saying
she
that
defines it.
Everything outside of that is socially constructed.
I'm not taking any opinion on that, I'm just saying, if we're teaching about biological sex, we should get the definition right, that's all I'm trying to.
Right, yeah, I'm just.
What I wanted to know was your interpretation. Are you asking from the guise of biological sex, like as in number one? Or are you asking in the guise of, like number four, like gender
Gender
identity?
identity,
Because your
those are
arguments are all,
No,
because biological sex is simply science.
right, and
But I think your arguments seem to lie more on the,
Like social
what
or-
you've quoted when you speak as like gender identity. And
Well,
so
that's
that's
a-
what I'm
yeah.
confused about with
No.
all of your arguments.
right, I'm not arguing anything, I'm.
Well, I mean,
I'm
your
trying to
points.
understand.
No, I mean your points, what
Yeah.
you're trying to say.
Right,
I'm
right.
kind of confused.
Yes, I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, you're
that-
asking me a question.
Yeah.
So,
that-
so I'm not addressing anything about like male and female differences, stereotypes,
Right.
any of
There
that.
is
I'm just saying the
there's
basic definition
There's a
of,
historical school of thought
right?
in many human cultures, right, that say, no, there's a lot more that's different between the sexes. That there's more to what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman than just your genitalia. There's inherently a difference in the sexes. What I'm hearing is absolutely no.
Yeah.
There's no other, so like.
I would
if
say
there's-
absolutely not, there are
No.
trends in
No,
male
I
interest and
think-
female interest that are cross-cultural.
Oh,
right?
so there's
So-
more to it. There's
but
more
that
to
doesn't
a
def-
human being.
But that doesn't define who you are in terms of your biological sex, right? So in other words, if you're a woman that likes a stereotypical male profession, you want to go into construction, that doesn't define that you're not a woman, right? But
No.
But what
Right.
I think it's definition versus like social roles. I'm not addressing social, I'm just saying biologically, are you a
Right.
man or woman, just like we're talking about dogs, like let's make it easy, not talk about humans.
I'm
Like
with
how do you
you.
define whether it's a male
I'm
or
still
a female
confused
dog?
with what
It's
you
defined
said.
by
I'm-
your genitalia.
I'm
Like, that's
with
all.
you. I'm hearing you say, if you strip all the culture away and you're
Correct.
just talking about biology,
Correct.
Okay.
there is zero difference between men and women other than their sex organs.
See, I
That's
can't
how
say
they're
that because there's
Huh?
other,
That's how they're defined biologically.
I'm just
Right,
saying
that's
that's
great. I'm
definition.
saying I'm just reflecting back that that's what I'm hearing.
yeah, but that's not what I'm saying.
Right, but you're saying there's more
Like-
to it than that, there's more to
I'm
it.
not-
But
I'm-
I
And men
don't-
have
I'm
more
just-
testosterone.
I guess I'm
I'm
confused.
not
So-
saying anything, I'm repeating
Yeah.
back what I'm hearing and making sure I understand it.
As a general
That's what
trend,
I'm hearing.
yeah, but as a general trend, it does not define gender, but as a general trend, men have a lot more testosterone in their bodies than women. So if you say there are no differences, well, yeah, you can point to very easily differences that are beyond just the genitalia. But I'm saying the definition
Quantifiable
is,
biological differences.
but differences don't define what gender is, biological sex is. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, it does right there. The
The-
difference
Or
is,
The difference is one thing, which is based on whether you produce sperm or egg or have the potential to. That's how it's defined. But all the other stuff is, like you said, it's more, some of it is cultural and some of it is actually biological, like most men have more testosterone. That is a biological phenomenon. That does not define whether you're male or female. That's just a trend that we know about, that, men tend to have bigger muscles, more testosterone, because the testosterone makes the muscles bigger. Like that's how it works, right? So there are differences, but it's not how you define it. If that makes sense.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, let's go.